Everybody. I'm Annette McCoy, and you're on Angel Heart Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to join in the discussion today, please go to Angel Heart Radio Facebook page because that's where you're able to join us. Janet Hickox is here with me, as she always is at the beginning of the month. And boy, Janet, as I welcome you, this November looks as though it's going to be a very interesting month with much going on in the skies.
Most definitely, right? October was that way as well, especially the second half of the month. But November, we just sort of head dived right into and are in the midst of transits that are kind of crazy, a collective shadow period that is even crazier, and heading for a lunar eclipse next Tuesday, my Tuesday, so your Wednesday.
Mm.
And then it just keeps going from there. I mean, seriously, but it's not like other months aren't like that. But when we're in eclipse season, and then we also have a collective shadow period going on in the same time, it makes things more tense. I mean, I was just thumbing through the news articles before I joined you. And I do that periodically because I like to see, well, what the heck's going on in the world that matches the astrology going on in the sky. It's crazy in the news cycle. So, of course, it's crazy. And here in the US, we have elections coming up on the day of the lunar eclipse. So it feels like there's a lot of jacked up rhetoric and this just crazy stuff going on.
Oh,
as is usual, right? As is usual.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because it just seems as though the world over craziness is going on in everything from human, what shall I say? Not activities. Well, yes, human, whatever, weather.
Dynamics, weather,
all, you guys,
politics.
Yes, yeah, the whole lot.
Yeah, sports world, bridges collapsing, people getting smashed to death at a Halloween celebration in Korea. I mean, today we heard that, or it was a news flash that came across that Yellowstone's volcano is acting up. Not the volcano, but earthquakes beneath the volcano. It's a super volcano, so that means it holds the potential for a huge impact for all of us. Asteroids. I mean, seriously, you're right. It runs the gamut. All of the areas of life that could be affected are being affected. And as above, so below, meaning if it's going on in the sky above us, then it is something that we're seeing also below here on the planet at various times and places. So, I mean, I almost feel like sometimes I'm a broken record because I'm saying these same things over and over again. It's going to be a crazy month. I haven't looked at December yet, so I'm hoping December maybe goes into a lull, but I don't hold out much hope for that either because it's the end of the year and it's almost like we're, rushing headlong into a completion of a cycle, only to begin again anew as we get into the new year. So, but November itself holds a lot of shifts and shifts as in planets changing direction, shifts as in eclipses. In our human design template, we see shifts going on by planetary themes. And when we have a lot of that going on in any one time period, and this time period is the month of November, then it really does sort of qualify the human experience as a bit crazy as well. So what do we do?
Well, what do we do? And it's interesting, your friend and mine, Londa, has joined us and she's going, no!
Well, I dare say that some people might find their lives smoothing out. Others might find their lives kind of amping up. So I'm going to start with our discussion today, going back to October 30th. So, I mean, we're only at November 2nd. You're November 3rd, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So if I start back on the 30th, or it would have been November 1st for you, the planet Mars moved into his retrograde cycle. And I noticed something interesting that day. And it didn't occur to me until the next day that it was because Mars had turned retrograde. And it was that I personally, so this is a personal observation, and I will bet other people noticed it as well. I suddenly went from feeling really pushed to put things out there in the world or to work even harder to get things done to kind of being a little bit more laid back about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of weird because I was like, okay, I'd been in this mad rush. It's getting to be the end of the year. And at the end of the year, I always do the astrology of the next year, like as a
Mm-hmm.
webinar. So, I start that rush of getting all that information and putting it together and then, marketing, that whole thing, right? That represents something that you're doing. And I went, no, I just feel so chill about this. I wrote up a little like diagram that I would follow and I did some work on it. And then I went, yeah, no, that ain't working. So I'm just going to leave it for later. Went back to it the next day. I was like, oh my gosh, is this because of Mars retrograde? And I have to say, it must be because typically that's the only big change that's occurred between, say, Friday when I was like all gung ho about getting this done and getting this out into the world, and Monday when I was like, take a chill pill, it'll get done. And that's
Do
one
you,
of the beauties of the astrology of the moment is we might just be chill about all the stuff that's going on.
do you know, Janet, that I was discussing that with a friend last night, and it's like when we stand back, we know what we want, but when we can stand back from it and allow the universe, just, especially lately, I've just been going, thank you, thank you, thank you. I've listened to my intuition. An example of that was I had a hair appointment booked for yesterday. And 2 weeks ago, I thought, you know what? I think I better change that. I thought it would be better to have it done a week earlier.
Mhm.
But it was a pressing thing, Annette, change it, change it, change it. And I did. And then yesterday, when I would have been sitting in the hairdressers, I was having a breakfast with a girlfriend. And I explained it to her. I said, talk about simply listening and responding. It's just, and it takes the stress out of life rather than us thinking, I have to get all of this done. It's like, well, no,
Like, oh, chill.
I can get it done. I will get it done.
Yeah. I think when a planet Mars as a planet represents that part of us that is action oriented. It's
Right.
a male archetype. So it's always about doing or pushing outward or getting things done. And when a planet turns retrograde, it moves that energy from the outward push to the more inward push. And I feel like in this case with Mars, it has really done that. It's in the sign of Gemini, which is my own natal sign too. So
Mhm.
Gemini is all about information and sharing and all of that. And I just felt like, okay, well, I'm going to be a little bit more, mm, I'm going to be slower to get the information out there because number one, Mars in retrograde in Gemini has Mercury retrograde qualities because Mercury is the planet that rules Gemini. So,
Uh-huh.
we want to make sure that our information is correct, that we haven't forgotten something or overlooked something. And I just feel like that's kind of that is creating a benefit for all of us and just being able to take that chill pill. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't still need to act to get things done. That
Mm.
does not equal, right? Um, but it just means that maybe we can be more intuitive about getting things done, or we
Mhm.
can just be more relaxed in the getting it done, as in everything always gets done. Has there ever been a time, at least in my life,
Mm.
where I've needed to get a webinar done or, slides done and I wasn't able to do it? Oh, but I can do that without the stress and the strain and the craziness that goes along with it. Now, does
Sure.
the rest of the world see it that way? I don't know. I don't know.
We have a choice, don't we?
Exactly. We have a choice of how it is that we're going to greet any of these energies that we're going to talk about today, right? So if you start to feel pushed harangued by life, right, then the choice that you can make is to go to peace or to go to quiet or solitude for a minute or to take a walk outside. I did that yesterday in the cold. I
Mm.
decided I can't sit still 1 minute more. I was going to go for a walk. I had started out taking my walk and my knee started aching so bad. I went, oh, yeah, I can't do this. So I went back home and said, I'm not giving this up. I got on my bicycle instead and went for a ride. I'm like, okay, I know that what I need is some fresh air, some movement. And if my knee isn't going to allow me to do it that way that I thought I was going to do it, then I'll do it another way. So again, choices. We get to make the choices. And when
We
I came
do.
back, I felt totally satisfied, right? That I'd been able to break the spell of, energy that was having me focus, and, got some perspective, going out in the fresh air.
Excellent. Now, Julianne has joined us
Hi,
and she
Julianne.
said, it's like you're reading my mind. Wow.
I do have that quality sometimes of reading people's minds, but it's really me reading the energy of the world. Now, here's the other thing that we'll have to be watchful for as it relates to Mars retrograde. And that is because it's in the sign of Gemini, it relates to news, it relates to information, it relates to the internet, it relates to our computers and our uh, devices, if you will. And because Mars is also involved, it relates to the actions that we take around communication. And so there is always the potential for a lot of passive aggressive writing to be taken place, for people to be definitely out there pushing a story that may or may not be true, right? The
Mhm.
conspiracy theorists are going to love this time because they're going to be pushing theories, but they could be so outlandish that normal people would look at that and just go, oy vey, right? What the heck? But we all have to be careful because we might even inadvertently be sharing information that isn't true. So we want to be very circumspect about what we say. We don't want to be sharing gossip. We don't want to
Mm.
be sharing, pieces of information that we heard second, third, or fourth hand that we somehow take in and make truth, and then we share it, and then we find out later it was a bunch of hogwash. So be very careful about information during these through January 12th, right? So the next few months, because we wanted to be discerning. Discernment
Mm.
is your friend, where speaking too soon or sharing something just because it comes across your feed and you believe it to be true, do your due diligence, be discerning, and share what's important to share, but not share everything. Because, you know, one of the first things that happens after Mars turns retrograde, yeah, Mars turned retrograde, was Elon Musk finished the purchase of Twitter and starts to change up the Twitterverse,
Right.
opening it up to all the people that had been banned because they were sharing disinformation or for whatever reason that got in that. And he sets about to change it up. This is the power of a retrograde. Things that were become different in the retrograde, and same thing happens again when it switches back to forward motion. So be watching the news cycles, be watching social media, be watching what's going on with the internet and with your own devices. Stay aware, stay conscious, and be sure that if you want to share some information that you've learned about, that you've really learned a piece of information that's true, not something that's a story, right?
Sure.
Because
And
it's
so
your responsibility.
I hear you loud and clear, Janet, because things that can come through on feed, I can look at it and go, oh, so and so sent that to me. It must be true.
Right?
And then quite often the person goes, oops, that wasn't. So,
Yeah.
welcome to Carol from
Hi, Carol.
Melbourne. She has joined us, which is very nice.
Good to have you with us, Carol. Yeah, so Mars in retrograde can do a lot of good stuff for us as long as we are willing to use it in the right way, which is often going to be the more internalized actions. You know what else I wanted to do that day that I thought was weird is I really felt the need to communicate, but not outwardly with other people. I wanted to get into my journal and I just wanted to write from that space. I did
Mm-hmm.
not do it because I was in the middle of doing something else, but it was interesting to watch that shift within me, to go from the need I usually feel to share with my community and what have you, and that shift to I want to share with myself,
Mm.
right? Sharing, with from my own heart or from my own, intuition in the form of a journal. So that may be going on for people as well. So just be watchful of that. So that set the tone right away for November, because anytime a planet changes direction, it takes a few days to get it to smooth out, if you will. It's like, energy waves, right? When a faster moving object moves past you, how you feel the energy of that object as it's passing, and then even for a little while afterwards. And
Mm-hmm.
you throw a rock out into a lake and you see the ripples of energy, and though it takes a while for that to come back to stasis. And that's kind of what happens when a planet changes direction, is that for a few days afterwards, we're still feeling the ripples of the impact of that change in direction. So we won't even have a chance probably to really get that all completed before we start feeling new ripples coming. And that's the coming of the lunar eclipse, which is coming up on the USA election day. And let's see, for you, let's see, universal time, it happens at 11:03 a.m. on November 8th. My guess is that puts it November 9th for you all, or maybe very late in the evening. My time 6:03 a.m. or West Coast time for 3:03. So 3:03. Yeah, that's actually going to put it on the same day. You guys are going to experience it on the 8th as well,
Right.
right? Yeah. So interesting, right? Um, we might have to confirm that. So somewhere, either for Australians, either the 8th or the 9th is the full moon lunar eclipse. And this one packs a wallop. The last eclipse was just on October 25th. It was a solar eclipse, but it was partial. So it didn't really have as much oomph behind it as other solar eclipses have had. And a lunar eclipse occurs at the time of the full moon. So it's really kind of the Earth passing between the sun and the moon, and we see the shadow of the Earth upon the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And at this particular, I didn't make up a chart. I have a chart. I could share my screen if you want me to do that, but I don't think we need to, because I think I can
Uh-huh.
articulate it. The key players in this eclipse kind of look like this. Hold on, I'm going to draw and then I'll show. Hopefully, I'll be able to show, considering I have something going on my screen. If I hold it out in,
You can share your screen if you would like to, Janet.
yeah, but I can't mark it up. But there we go.
All
You
right.
can see that line that's bold. That's the opposition of the sun and the moon. I can actually stop sharing. I can actually change my background to no background.
Ah, right.
And then you'll see my room.
Technology, isn't it fabulous?
Yeah, so here we
Just what?
go.
Oh, that's better.
Okay, so you see here's the side with the moon over here,
Yep.
and the symbols, there's the obvious one, the moon, but then there's Uranus, and there's the North Node, and then over here we have the sun, and okay, camera, you can see the sun has Mercury on one side of it and Venus on the other. So when I say energetic, I mean it is an energetic moon, because on one side, the moon itself has the planet Uranus, which can create all kinds of surprises and unexpectedness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that's going to affect our U.S. Election cycle? I would say whatever it is the pundits out there are saying, expect the exact opposite. Kind of happened in Brazil that way. All the pundits were saying one guy was going to win, and the other guy did. So I
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
feel like whatever it is that they're putting out there is all, rhetoric and, possibly not even true. Maybe its design is to confuse and, kind of make people crazy. Yeah. And then, the opposite can happen, because Uranus guarantees unexpectedness. And when he's involved in a eclipse, any eclipse, whether it's sun or moon eclipse, he is going to bring the awakening shock, right? Something that just shocks us all. And then on the other side with the sun, with Mercury and Venus on either side, that brings communication and love, our values and money, all kind of crystallized into the energy of the sun. And then they're in opposition to one another, right? Moon, Uranus, North Node, Mercury, Sun, Venus, South Node, opposite. Um, this actual eclipse occurs at 16 Taurus. So what we're looking at is the potential for simplifying our world. What can bring ease? What can
Mm-hmm.
make things more simple in our day-to-day lives? And that means we might have to do what the Scorpio end is hesitant to do, which is to release baggage, to let go of the past, to let
Mm-hmm.
go of everything that we think we know and everything that we think has ever happened and everything that we ever thought was true, in favor of the simplification factor. What is true? Well, is love true? Yeah. Is it true that we're divine beings? True. Right? Is it that our job here is to love one another? True. Right? So if you get back to the simple basics, no, I just stripped that back to really, really basic. But if everybody stripped their lives back to the basic things, the basic values, love and faith and taking care of one another and compassion and tolerance and acceptance, the world would change dramatically in an instant, right? But with the
Mm-hmm.
South Node in Scorpio, we human beings, mere mortals that we are holding on to a whole host of grievances and unforgivenesses and emotional upsets and the experiences sometimes of guilt or shame or being abandoned or being betrayed, and we hold on to all of that. So then
Mm.
those things become filters through which we see the world. If we could let go of the filters, if we could clean the HEPA filter, we'd breathe cleaner air. If we could clean the baggage filter, we would see things with light instead of through darkness. Does all that make sense?
It does. And Julianne is saying, I have stopped the negative people. Oh, sorry, I have stripped the negative people out of my life. Well
Yeah,
done, Julie.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And, because the planet's involved with the sun, who's really where the light is shining, our personal planets, it's not going to be something that we can expect from the collective. We cannot say, I expect our government is going to clean this up, or I expect that, this party or this institution or this group. No, it has to be back to me, right? It has to
Mm.
go back to yourself. And what am I willing to do? How am
Sure.
I going to make things better? How am I going to release the baggage or the old stuff, right? So we have to clean our own closets, clean our own clocks, and strip our own selves down, because we can't do that on the collective basis. But whatever we do, however we shine up our own selves, has an impact on people around us, which has an impact on the people around them. And by then virtue of being a part of the collective, it helps to shape the collective in a new way. So
Mm.
so we can't go out and say, okay, I want you to change. Annette, I want you to change. I want you to let go of all your fears and, do it now. No, I can't
Yeah.
do that. Right? That's not the way this works. But if
Mm.
I'm noticing something about you that maybe that you are afraid of heights, I'm making this up. She's not afraid of heights that I know of. Um, but if you were, afraid of that, and I'm saying you need to get over that so you can climb that mountain, I need to look inside me and go, well, what part of me resonates with being afraid of heights? Right? What part of me is afraid of something, whatever that
Mm.
is? So when we can do that, it stops us from blaming and shaming and guilt tripping other people for the condition we find ourselves in. And puts the responsibility squarely on our shoulders. We become the accountable ones, right? So I wonder why it is I'm seeing that, or why it is that's happening, or what part of me is
Mm.
still in resonance with, polarity or polarized thinking, or whatever the situation is. So we have some really
Excellent.
high elements available to us for the lunar eclipse, but we have to take action in a new way.
Carol's saying, Janet, simplifying my life this last 3 years makes life easier.
It does indeed. So we can simplify on the physical level by, cleaning clutter and, throwing out the garbage and, this kind of thing, right? That's the physical 3D realm. We could also do a cleaning of the fourth dimensional realm, which is the realm of information that, or, the mind, within our mind, our beliefs, our emotions, and all of the chatter. So we can clean that clock. And we can also clean our higher mind, right? Our higher mind, well, it really doesn't need cleaning, but we can clean the others so that we can see the higher mind, or, get to that higher mind, the fifth dimension, in a much simpler way, right? Because I think, I hear this a lot from different clients, one today, as a matter of fact, saying, I don't know what my guides are trying to tell me. Right? I don't know. I don't understand. Right? I want them to be, clear cut, simple. Just say what you mean. Don't give me all this symbol baloney because it's too hard. And one of the thoughts I had during that conversation was, clean the filter of your 3D, clean a physical being, clean the filter of your mind. You'll hear the guidance in a much clearer voice. So we also have that available to us during this eclipse.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Debbie has joined us, Debbie Tracy Stott. She's been cleaning all night.
What on earth for?
I wonder what you've been cleaning, Debbie. I hope you feel really, really good.
Actually, I think a lot of us are going to feel that need to clean, right? Not so much because it's dirty, but because it's cluttered, or it's stifling us in some way. We might feel like we need some more space. And, I did that with I spent a whole day over the weekend, I think it was Saturday, cleaning off my desk of papers and things that I had collected, and organizing them in the way that I'd originally set it up to be organized. But over time, I just started piling stuff up, and it felt so good to have everything back in its place where it belonged. So I can understand that cleaning sometimes gives us that spacious feeling. But don't forget that there's also stuff, if you have stuff in the 3D cluttering your mind or cluttering your life, you've got it in the fourth dimension too. All of us do. So cleaning out the repository of all of that is the mind. Now, there's one other thing going on in this eclipse part of the pattern, and you're going to see in what I've just drawn here is what is called a T-square. So the T-square is when we have two planets in opposition. In this case, we actually have 5 of them in opposition, 3 on this side and 2 over here. And they each point to another planet in a 90-degree angle. So this becomes a highly activated aspect or configuration in astrology. And it's one that is pressing, right? It presses on us. Now, the planet that's down at this end is Saturn, and Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. So we've got Aquarian energy here, the point of the square here, and then we have Taurus and Scorpio energy here. And all 3 of these signs are fixed signs. Fixed in astrology means that they have the quality of staying power. They have the stick-to-itiveness energy. They're loyal, stable, difficult to uproot, right? They get into a comfort zone. So while we have a T-square in fixed signs, and the fixed signs are also the home of the eclipses, it may be our most stubborn parts of ourselves that we need to address. The most determined, dogged, dogma, entrenched comfort zone that you are in is likely where you're going to find the need to have to make a change, or to move, or to get out of your own way. And it's interesting because Uranus and the moon, which is over here at this side, right? This is Uranus and the moon squaring Saturn down here. Uranus has been squaring Saturn off and on for the last year and a half, 2 years. So this is change that is upon us that we don't necessarily want to make. So we're resisting. There's resistance. And the change that we may not want to make might be for a variety of reasons. If it's a government, it might be because it's too costly to do it. It might be in your own personal life because, I've always done it this way. Why would I need to change it? If it's in your family, it might be, well, this is tradition, isn't it? There could be all kinds of reasons that we have for not letting go and changing, but change is upon us and we must change, right? Or die, literally or figuratively speaking. So there's that quality that amps up this whole experience of the eclipse. So, and that means that because we're close enough to the eclipse, we're already just 7 days from the eclipse, 6 days from the eclipse. You're probably already feeling it. Some area of your life needs to be emptied. Some area of your psyche needs to be emptied. Some area of your belief system needs to be emptied. So be thinking about that and be willing to simplify, to release, to change, to reimagine yourself, to be willing. Just be willing.
Yes. Now, Julie is giving thanks because she's very, very grateful to be alive and healing daily after a spate of illness. So never take anything for granted. That's a biggie too.
Absolutely. So bottom line, the eclipse is coming. Life is going to change as it always does. It may not be comfortable, but we can consciously choose what we change, right? And that can be personal. It should be personal. It's not you wanting to change the outer world. It's how do I want to change me? How do I want to show up in this world? Now, after that, we have a whole host, like literally 2 weeks worth of aspects that occur. And when I say aspects, they're things like the sun comes into an opposition with Uranus, Mercury squares Saturn, Venus trines Neptune, and on every day. So that wasn't like one day. That was first one was one day, second day. So on and on, all the way to the change in the zodiac sign on the 22nd, where the sun moves into Sagittarius. And then we get maybe a short little respite over the couple of days after that. That's Thanksgiving here in the USA. Thankful, right? We get a breather. But every day before that is filled with some kind of interplanetary change, which means all of us are being affected because the planets, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Earth, those are inner planets and they affect us personally. Jupiter and Saturn kind of bridge the personal with the collective, and that makes it much more of a social or cultural change that we would have to deal with. And then the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and everything beyond that are considered collective, right? So they take a longer period of time to transit, and it really affects the bigger picture of humanity. So these personal planets are all buzzing around. And it may sound like a cacophony of bees buzzing in your head, buzzing in your action, causing upset or causing confusion, or maybe causing you to leap into things and be excited one moment and optimistic and jump into something and then go, oh, what did I get myself into? So we want to be very aware of this tendency over the next few weeks. And bracketed within that, Venus and Mercury both leave Scorpio and enter Sagittarius. And now we also have a Jupiterian feel. And remember, Jupiter is a planet of growth and expansion, and sometimes overdoing it, overspending, over imbibing, overeating, over promising what we can do. So we want to become more proportional I just can't stress enough the quality of the up and down. We've all seen the stock market, right? Where we have these plummets and then we
Mm-hmm.
have, ups and downs and plummets or big gains. That's kind of that's a really good picture for what November is bringing to us on the different layers of the dimensional realities of who we are. And then add to that, now we're in a collective cycle of the shadow, which means that the things that we have not dealt with, right, the inner issues that we haven't dealt with are all coming up, right? So we see almost the worst of humanity out there, the worst sides of people, out there. Um, and no matter what your political beliefs are, the fact that an older gentleman was beat in the head with a hammer, that is not fodder for jokes by the other party. I don't care who you are or what your belief system is. That's just wrong. And yet we
Mm.
see it. I don't know if you know what I'm even talking about, but
Well,
it's when people lose all their filters and just feel like they can say whatever they want to say, you know,
mm-hmm.
but an elderly gentleman being beat in the head with a hammer to me is wrong, no matter who that person is or who their wife is. It's
Mm.
wrong and shouldn't be something that is put into a joke or a meme or, bandied about as, oh, they deserve that.
It comes back to our own responsibility, doesn't it?
It does. It does
Mm.
indeed. But it also comes back to decency. It comes back to
Yes.
our values, right?
Mm-hmm.
If, we can't say on one hand that we value individuality and that we value love and that we value compassion and then treat each other like that. That
Mm.
just, that energy just doesn't work together. So the only person that can work on their values system, again, is you, right?
Mm.
The,
Mm-hmm.
the only one that can walk their talk is you. I
Sure.
can't walk your talk for you.
Mm.
So I just find it interesting to see some of those kinds of, ugliness going on. It's just not funny, it's just not funny, even though this person tried to make a joke out of it. Not funny, not funny in the least. So we have to be careful, right? That we are staying humane during these times where craziness is all about us. It takes effort to not react to those things in negative ways or, in more base ways, if you will. Now, some good news falls on the new moon this month and that's on the 23rd of November when Jupiter turns direct. Now, Jupiter's
Mm-hmm.
been in retrograde since June, and he was at 8 degrees of Aries when he turned retrograde. When he turns back to forward motion, he'll be at about 27.5 degrees of Pisces. So very quickly, we'll have a sign change, right? It won't take long for Jupiter to move out of, does he even do it this month? He doesn't. In early December, he'll change out of the sign of Pisces and back into Aries. So we have, kind of a restoring of faith, a restoring of the human spirit, perhaps some good thing that we see out in the world. And it could be personal, it could be in the wider world. That helps to restore our faith is coming as we get toward the end of the month. So you might circle the 23rd. That's the day before the Thanksgiving holiday here in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
So something that might restore our faith in each other, our faith in the world, or our faith in the rightness of how things are working out. And it seems to calm down a titch after just for a few days until we get into the very last week of November, where we also see a lot of transits between Venus and Mars and Mercury that can exacerbate or blow up sort of our lives in some ways, and many little ways, but possible big ways as well. So just be on the lookout, right? Remember that only you can choose how you respond to anything, right? No one's going to make you blow up or be mad or do things that you shouldn't do, right? Only you can can make that decision or that choice. It's always up to you. Nobody makes you do anything. So that takes us through the astrology pretty much of the month of November. Let me think, is there anything I missed here? Nope. I think that's probably enough of that. If we look at human design now, which
Yes.
I always like to look at human design of the month because it gives us a different perspective, right? It gives us keywords like that we can sort of, look to for guidance on what some of the other energies are about. And the first week of November actually began on Halloween on the 31st of October and runs through November 5th. So likely you're November 1st through 6th. And that is all about the last of the shadow gates on the spleen. So the last potential fear that can be popping up for us, even though there's a greater collective cycle going on. But for us as individuals, this represents the last gate. And it's really about the fear of the past, like the past repeating itself. That it's a logic kind of sequence. So in logic, we talk about something happens, and because it's part of a pattern, we can sort of predict what comes next. And just because we can predict what comes next doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing that comes next, but we can see this like a possibility of prediction. Well, what if it's all based on, baggage, and the past repeating itself is self-fulfilling prophecies about how you are in relationships, or about what happens in your finances, or about what your health represents, or about fill in the blank, right? So we want to be very aware of the story this week, especially that we tell ourselves about the things that have happened and transpired in our lives. And there's always a blessing, right? The earth is sitting at the gate of blessings, which means that in the story, we can choose to see the blessings and transmit that as part of the story instead of just being caught in the negative aspects of the story. So that's the first week of the month. Next week, we get into the most creative energies, right? So at the beginning of it'll be November 6th through 10th, 7th through 11th for you guys in Australia. And during that week, it is the most creative expression outward and the most creative inward energy in the whole of the human design. And this energy is, deep in the heart of Scorpio, right? And it becomes our following our passion and expressing the ourselves, our life purpose in the world is to express our passion and what we love and to do what we love. It doesn't, there's no, you weren't here to be a broadcaster, Annette. And, there's no thing in your astrology that says you need to be a fireman, or you need to be a news reporter, or you need to be a nurse. No, there's not that. Life purpose doesn't include what you do. Life purpose is what you choose. What do I choose? Right. And of course, we can see gifts and we can see talents and we can see things you might be good at and things that maybe you're not so good at. But your life purpose is really about being the most self-expressed, most creative person for you, creating the life you want to live. So that comes up next week. And at the same time, Saturn moves backward or forward, excuse me, because he's not in retrograde anymore. He moves forward into the gate 49 revolution. That's on the 10th. So it's at the very end of that week. And one of the things I think about this is the gate of revolution is about not seeing things in so black and white of terms, right? Seeing the colors, the various innuendos, the insides, just the various nuances in any situation, right? Because no one situation is ever just black or white, but that gate can sometimes, or that channel can sometimes get us thinking in that black and white kind of way of thinking. And then something comes along that upsets that. So we might have to consciously, for the next couple of weeks after this, to, try to look at the colors, the nuances, not just the black and the white of things. Now, the following week is the week of genius. Everybody, every one of you And genius to me doesn't have anything to do with your IQ, your intelligence quotient. In fact, it has very little to do with that. It has more to do with brilliance, and your personal path of genius. Like, what is it that makes you stand out in the crowd, right? It might be that you draw the best. It might be that you are the best cook. Who knows what it is, but you know your own personal genius. What is it that you can do that better than anybody else, right? What is it that you can do that people often say to you, gosh, you're so good at that, right? That's your
Mm-hmm.
brilliance, that's your genius. And that gets focused in on in week 3 of November, which is the 11th through the 16th. And again, there's a theme popping up here in that week about simplicity, about simplifying life, right? So one end of that energy gets a little complex, tries to make that brilliance be something big, like a skyscraper, right? The biggest skyscraper ever, and has all this intricacy to it. The other end says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Can't you build something and make it simply beautiful, right? Simple and beautiful. So that genius that we have doesn't have to be decorated, doesn't have to be enhanced, right? Your genius is your genius, right? Express it in its most simplest terms, from the lowest to the highest that you can. But you don't have to make yourself better. You don't have to make it, sparkle, because it already sparkles all on its own. So it's an interesting week. Pluto that week also changes gates, and it moves into a gate called conservatism. And we've already had it. He's been at this gate once already, and teaching us about how I'm going to use the word how to limit, but maybe we should use boundary instead of limit, because it's not about really limiting yourself. In the shadow, it is about being limited. But
Mm.
in the gift, it is about accepting where you are, what your gifts are, what your talents are, and then living it, being that. So that is Pluto expressing genius, the sun and the earth that week, but Pluto saying, okay, now strip it down to its most important keys. And what's the innovative part of you that can be expressed here? The next week is even more interesting because it is the week of bounty. I love this week. Um, the gate
Yes.
14 is where the sun is, and its highest keyword is bounteousness. Say that 10 times fast. And it's a gate that really expresses abundance, right? In
Mhm.
abundance, specific abundance that is abundance itself comes because of the intrinsic value that you have as a human being, right? You don't have
Mhm.
to earn your right to have food or water or a roof over your head. That's gotten all twisted in the world as it's being expressed right now. But what this particular gate says is that when you apply energy and work towards something, then bounty is the natural um, outcome. So,
Mhm.
especially when you are doing what you love, not just doing any old thing, right? But
Mm.
doing what you love, and not compromising doing what you love, right? For the sake of money, or for the sake of, I'm not good enough, no, 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 no compromising of oneself in that week. It's all about making the contribution that you're here to make to the planet, to your family, to your community, to yourself, right? Um,
Mhm.
the next week comes along, and this is a very highly activated week. It is the same week as Thanksgiving here in the US. Um, it is the crazy beginning of the Christmas holidays, right? For us, I don't know if you guys have like Black Friday or whatever, where everybody, all the
Yes.
deals, come on. And so that week is always a highly energetic week. And at the same time, the nodes of the moon that point us in the life path trajectory, right? The path of destiny that the collective is taking changes and moves into the gate of gratitude and blessings. Yes, I've been waiting for this. I saw this coming last year when I was doing the
Mm.
the webinar for the next year, and I was like, hallelujah, right? Because what better energy to bracket Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year, because it'll be a 3.5 month sojourn in these energies, then to begin it with gratitude, right? To let go of rationalizing, all of the bad, and to just let loose with being grateful for every experience, for everything
Mhm.
that you have, everything that you are, even the negative things that have happened in your life have had blessings. And then being able
Yes.
to share those blessings with the people in your life and the world around you, changing up the story, right? Changing up the story. That particular change mimics this week that we're in because the sun and the earth are now in the same two gates that the nodes will be into at the last week of November. So start living that gratitude right now, using
Mm.
gratitude and forgiveness and acceptance and love as the antidote to every upset that's going on in your life. Everything to be answered by those, kind of qualities. And then finally, we end the month November 28th through December 3rd. I decided to put that week into November because otherwise December goes on and on and on. It's a long month anyway. Um, we get to talking more about what is it we want to focus on? What's important to us? Where do I want to put my enthusiasm? Where do my zest for life, what direction does it lead me in? And how do I want to focus that energy? So that'll be a big week as well, but in a completely different way, in a more mundane way, let's say. It's not as sexy or exciting as the other weeks, but it's important in the grand scheme of things because pointing our focus, and I'm talking about our mental focus here and our energy of doing at something that is where our enthusiasm lies, allows us to sustain ourselves or to keep going and doing what we love.
Mhm.
Um, but it can often be a place where we start to feel sort of that ADD feeling, right? Attention deficit, like there's a shiny object, let's go that way. So that week, consequently can have different effects. Uh, but if we keep focusing on sharing uh, from our hearts, then we find ourselves less prone to scattered thinking, scattered actions, that kind of thing. So I can't believe I did that all within an hour.
Yeah, you've done so well, Janet. And we
But
can, when you were talking about the stock market and how, life can appear like that, I thought of the pogo stick and how we can go
boy, that's
up
that's
and
a good one
down.
too. Yeah, or the teeter totter, that's always going one way than the other. The rag doll. Right? I mean, it has a lot of different ways that we can describe it. Um, but the thing is, when we're off balance, when we are being kept off balance, it calls us down to the simplest, right?
Yes.
Because we don't have the space, the mind space, the body space, the spiritual space to hold much more, right? So we
Mm.
have to strip it down. So I think for some people who are resistant to or refusing to simplify, this could be much more difficult month than those people who open arms say, okay, I'm simplifying. I'm breaking this down to its simplest components. What's most important to me? What's most important, to live? What's my truth? Um, where am I authentic? Where can I be authentic?
Right.
I think those people will have an easier time of this month. Yeah.
Well, I managed to put out your website, Janet,
Mm.
because Carol wants to reach out to you. She's rediscovered her natal chart. She's looking
Oh,
forward to sharing
awesome.
that. And so, for our other members of the audience who might want to reach out to you, www.living-astrology.com. And there, people can request a chart, which is very generous of you.
There, now you can see it living-astrology.com or hyphen, it's a hyphen,
Beautiful.
but we call it a dash. I also want to tell people that on my website right now is the webinar for 2023, and it's $25 American. I don't know what that would be in Australian
About
dollars? Maybe,
about 35 Australian, I think,
yeah.
maybe 40.
But you can sign up for the webinar now, and it comes with a free bonus, which is your own personalized astrology calendar for 2023.
Whoa.
And it's an invaluable tool. I've had people tell me how wonderful that I use mine all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it has, like, not only it's in your own time zone, so it's telling you the time for where you live, but it tells you everything of most importance first for the whole month, for the whole year. And then it goes month by month and tells you in most important, in day order, what to be aware of, along with the interpretation of that. So it's really a useful tool. It comes free with your purchase of the webinar. You can't, because it's going to be on December 15th at 12 noon Pacific. So that may be very early in the morning for you all. If you,
Yes,
when,
because we're going to 5 p.m. for you, aren't we? That
no,
5
3
p.m. for
p.m.
you next month really correlates to 10 a.m. for me. So if you work back, you said noon, so that's 5 hours earlier.
No, no,
Oh,
no,
that's
no, 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 no. So it'll
5
be 3 p.m. my time. So 3 p.m. my time will be 9 a.m. your time. Or what time are you and I on right now? Your time at your house?
I'm on it. It's almost 11 a.m. for me.
Okay, so 10 a.m. So next month it'll be my 3 p.m.
Oh, I
and
beg your pardon. I went the wrong way.
yeah. So it
Okay,
will still
so
be early in the morning though. So it's 12 minus, it'll be
7,
early.
that'd be doable.
That's doable, I suppose. But the
Yeah.
key, the whole point of me actually saying that was this. You don't have to attend live. Your purchase will still get you the recording, the slides, the whole presentation, and you can still get the bonus of your astrology, your personalized astrology. So,
That sounds
uh,
absolutely fantastic, Janet.
yeah, it's amazing the
What a
technology that we have and how it allows us to do things like that, where, you
sure.
know, don't worry about coming in live unless you have questions specifically that you want to talk to me about. You can listen to the recording and see everything just as if it was live.
So you're saying that's the 15th of December for you,
Mhm, mhm.
which would be
15th
the
of December.
16th here in Australia.
Yeah,
Mm,
12 p.m. Pacific time. So that would be, like we said,
7
7
a.m.
a.m. Yeah,
Mm.
7 a.m. your time.
Well, that's very exciting. And
Yeah.
I'm very excited because my next show on Angel Heart Radio is indeed with you on what will be the 1st of December for me and the 30th of November for you. Because on Sunday night, I fly out to Oslo with the trusting that I will see the Northern Lights. However, my traveling companion and I were talking about that, saying that that's why we signed up for the trip, but we understand that the universe wants us there, and if we see the lights, it will be an absolute bonus. We're looking forward to so many different experiences on the other side of the world.
I think that would be so magnificently fun. Are you taking a
Mm.
cruise or you're flying in there
Yes,
or
we're flying, and we have a cruise for 6 nights, and that's where I'll be for my birthday. So another fun experience, and then we
awesome?
fly home, and I get on with life over here again, leading into December. So very, very exciting. And thank
Awesome.
you, Carol, saying thank you, and she's wishing me happy travels. Thank you very much, Carol.
Happy travels
Happy.
and happy birthday.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, Janet, and to all of our audience, I trust that November will be more up than down, and especially when we remember, Janet, that it does come back to our own responses. So, no point
Exactly.
pointing the finger elsewhere. Let's take responsibility for our actions and our deeds and our thoughts and make this world a better place.
Right. Good. Well said. Well said.
So, all right. Well, may I remind everybody that we should never take these shows as advice for medical, professional, or legal advice, not our own sound judgment. Just listen and take on board how you feel. You know, again, isn't that a classic case of using our discernment and listening to how we feel about something? So Julianne, she's good night from England. Thank you very much for joining us from
Yes.
England, where it happens to be midnight. Whoa, the bewitching hour.
Wow. Thank you, Julianne. That's awesome.
She's done very, very well.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Annette.
Janet. May we have a lovely, lovely November.
Right.
Bye for now.